A computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. Does it sound relatable? IBM wasn't warning us about computers. They were warning us about ourselves, about delegating decisions before you've learned how to measure them. This sentence might be a little bit cryptic, but I'm just gonna share you a little story. I've realized that the amount of unsolicited information I get from social was insane, so I started to build like a fortress where I just disconnect and create my own bubble and just tap in when I need so I can be creative on my own space. So Instagram gone, LinkedIn gone, X gone, but I wanted to experiment with emails because there is very important information that I get from email, especially from the company that I'm building, P&Ls, and sending money. So the goal was that I wanted my inbox to totally disappear, like I did for Instagram. Then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give it to Claude and see what we can do. I just told him, simple job. Keep Mercury, Wise, company alerts related to money, so basically Mercury, and insurance, so health. The rest, archive it. Simple. Honestly, it really worked. All the bullshit went in the out of my way label, and then in my inbox, I just have the money. Then 3 days later, I just can't code. Like for some reason, all my limits are hitting in Cloud. And surprise, surprise, look at this. All my limits were 100%. Just to let you know, normally what I use is my current session, and I hit this like 2 or 3 times a week. This one never hits the weekly limit. This is insane. So you can argue, Roland, without AI, you cannot code. Yes, I can code, but like, that's not the problem here. The problem is I was using a tool and suddenly I could not use it anymore and I had 0 alerts. So I had to go to investigation and discover that. And in the investigation, I discovered a couple things about how Claude works regarding limits that is very insidious and just tailored to the interests of Anthropic. It just lets you really understand what these companies are about. Discovery number 1, there is no alerting. Like the only alert you have is when you cannot work. And that is very insidious because they're punishing you. The app punishes you when you hit the limit, when you cannot work. So the punishment is stop working. But they're not telling you chill at 50%, you're about to reach your limit, reprioritize your work and get ready to stop. They're not saying that. What they're doing is that they're training you a little bit like a Pavlov dog to just hit the limit. And for them, it just means revenue. So they're just tricking you into not being aware with tokens. That's what the training stick and carrot is made right now. That's the framework. 2, like when you're running a scheduled task, the way that I've done it with Claude, basically it's just a chat that runs every hour. So it's a chat that triggers itself every time at 4 a.m. I realized that every chat that you trigger has not token consumptions. Like you cannot be token aware in each chat that you do with Claude, including cron tasks and like repeated scheduled tasks. 3, there is no execution log. So you don't know every time that you execute a remote task in a scheduled task, you don't know what happened. You actually don't even know if the goal was achieved. It's not even testable. So this exposed the agent to take whatever path it wants to achieve the goal. Anthropic has the control on the harness, on the agent, and if the agent wants to spin more tokens, he will do it. I suspect that's what happened because why would you hit the limit to sort emails? I drilled down a little bit and turns out that in some runs, he decided to just sort my whole inbox. Really stupid. And 4, I thought that scheduled task in my test for a couple days, I thought I would actually follow the prompt and use it the least amount of token. I was aware that I would not write a code, but it was very undeterministic. Like it was really going high wire. And at the end of the day, like what I wanted to do was extremely deterministic. I think I jumped a little bit into conclusions to just try to give it to Claude for simplicity, which opens another door. If you're non-technical and you want to use the simple tools that these AI companies are giving to you, you're essentially letting in a Trojan horse to your budget because it's open buffet and there is 0 limits for you. The real problem here, the question wasn't why Claude is so expensive. The question was, why did I needed AI at all? Especially in my case where I really define productivity in a special sense. Because if sender is Mercury, keep. If Wise, keep. If company alert, if insurance, keep. Else, archive. That was like the definition of productivity. I'm not here to build a second brain. I'm here to disconnect from every type of unsolicited information. I already knew the answer. The intelligence was in the vision and what I wanted to build and build that into a procedure. That's what we needed here. It basically is a Gmail filter. The exact solution here was to just create a filter. here Mercury, let's just take Mercury, and then create a filter on these emails and keep that, right? If these filters are not good enough for you, this is what I did personally. I just build an end-to-end flow that triggers every hour, then gets all the messages in the last hour, only the unread messages, limit 50. Then here's just a filter. If it did not contain any of these words in the sender, it just contains a string in the sender email, then it adds a label to all these things and then remove it from the inbox. That's it. That's what I needed it to do. This, it's a script, a JSON object. This is 0 tokens. But the reason why it went from potentially a complicated problem to 0 tokens, it's just because in my life, because I'm not managing people and my companies, my consulting, I define productivity as I don't want to be interrupted. So I'm just going to keep what actually needs my attention, which is money. That's it. This is observable, repeatable. You can see the executions. You can see when it fails. You can take the arguments and put it back into the debug and see why it worked. You can pin things, you can save, you can see evaluations. So test it. You have everything that a software engineering team could need for this specific small problem. And honestly, it took me 5 to 10 minutes to just put the right labels. Coming back to the quote of IBM, computer can never be held accountable, therefore a computer must never make a management decision. Now it makes sense. When you read that, you first think that it talks to CEOs, but now with AI, I think it can talk to anybody who is actually talking to a computer. So it's valid to smaller scale, your employees, for instance. The management decision here wasn't to archive an email. The real management decision is why or what deserve my attention. And I already answered that question. The only thing that deserves my attention is money. AI to make a decision every hour. That was a mistake here in this example. It's not Cloud Code is bad beyond the manipulations that they're doing with alerting and teaching you to never be token aware, is that, yeah, that the decision was taken. I didn't needed AI to take a decision for me every hour again. I just treated a deterministic problem that didn't require any intelligence into something that had an LLM. Through simplifying the problem and looking at the vision of what actually needed to be done, I transform a complex thing into just something that could be executable. And I think that's scoping down. Let's think about the best email manager you can have and just scope down to the absolute minimal and make it repetitive. This is where the biggest wins are. But that's just the fundamentals of tech. I needed the same result every single time. And it's better to adapt your vision to have that than expose yourself to reasoning for no reason. Okay, great. So what's the recommendation here? Before you use AI, ask yourself in that prompt, are you asking AI to make a decision or to execute a decision that was already made? If the decision is not made, then don't use AI. If the decision is made, then automate it or automate the process to build it. Hence using an AI tool to build the thing. I think the AI industry has convinced us that every problem needs more intelligence, more AI, but sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stop asking AI to think. IBM wasn't warning us about computers. They were warning us about ourselves, about delegating decisions before you've learned how to measure them.